All right, so today we're doing something a little different. We're going to take a snapshot of the entire world, all through the lens of a single day, February 7th, 2026. Let's find out what a day on this planet really looks like. It seems like a simple question, right? But the answer, well, the answer tells us so much about where we are right now. We're talking about the rise of new leaders, the brutal reality of war, and even how politics can crash the party at the Olympics. Together, let's see just how connected and maybe how divided our world truly is. So here's our game plan. We're kicking things off in Japan with their fascinating new prime minister. Then it's on to Ukraine, where peace talks are somehow happening during a massive air assault. From there, a really heartbreaking story out of Sudan, then over to Italy for the Winter Olympics, and we'll wrap things up in Washington, D.C. with a huge political controversy. Okay, first stop, Tokyo. Japan has its first female prime minister, Sane Takaichi, and she is heading into a really important election this Sunday with a kind of popularity you just don't see very often. Takaichi has built this image that is completely different from any of her predecessors. I mean, she's a heavy metal fan who rides motorcycles, a total contrast to the long line of older men who've traditionally run Japan. Her younger supporters even call her Sana, and her personal mantra about working has become a national catchphrase. Politically, though, she comes straight from the school of the late, very conservative Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, and she is definitely carrying that torch forward. You have to understand, early in her career, she got so much criticism for her age, for being a woman, even for things like wearing flashy jewelry. And this was her response. It was this crystal clear statement that she was determined to be judged on her actions and nothing else. So what does she actually stand for? Well, her platform is really split into two clear sides. On one side, you have these deeply conservative social views. She supports keeping the imperial line male-only and is against same-sex marriage. And on the other side, you've got her very nationalistic policy goals, a much stronger military, more patriotic education, and getting tougher on immigration. It all sounds a lot like her mentor, Shinzo Abe. And this is the bottom line. Sunday's election is way more than just a vote. It's a potential pivot point for the entire country. If her party scores a big win, she'll have a powerful mandate to reshape Japan's future, locking in a major shift to the right that will be felt all over the world. All right, so from a leader looking to cement her power, we now go to a place where power is brutally fought over every single day, Ukraine. And what's happening here is just a massive contradiction. You have this desperate push for peace happening at the exact same time as a huge new wave of attacks. It's like we're watching two completely different realities play out at once. On one hand, you've got the diplomats. The U.S. has apparently set a June deadline for a peace deal, and high-level talks are in the works. But on the other hand, you have the brutal reality on the ground. A massive Russian assault overnight aimed right at Ukraine's energy grid, forcing emergency blackouts all over the country. And to really get a sense of the scale of this attack, just look at these numbers. Russia launched more than 400 drones and almost 40 missiles in just one night. And while Ukrainian air defenses did an absolutely incredible job intercepting 388 of those drones, the sheer volume of the attack still did a ton of damage. And that's really why this matters so much. It just perfectly illustrates the almost impossible task facing diplomats. I mean, how can you possibly build trust and negotiate a lasting peace when one side is actively trying to destroy the other's ability to just survive the winter? There's just no easy answer to that. Now, from a conflict that's in the news every day, we turn to one that honestly often gets overlooked, the civil war in Sudan. In the state of North Kordofan, a single attack shows the horrific cost this war is having on the most vulnerable people imaginable. At least 24 civilians were killed. These were families fleeing violence in another state, all packed into one vehicle when they were attacked by the paramilitary group known as the RSF, or Rapid Support Forces. And it gets even more heartbreaking when you realize who these victims were. 8 of them were children. 2 of them were infants. A third of the people killed were just kids, trying to get somewhere safe. The Sudan Doctors Network, they did not mince words. They called this attack exactly what it looks like. A war crime. The deliberate targeting of unarmed civilians, people who are already running for their lives, is a complete violation of international law. So why focus on this one attack? Because this single horrific event is like a window into one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. The UN says over 14 million people have been forced from their homes. And this attack shows us that in this war, civilians aren't just getting caught in the crossfire, they are very often the actual targets. Okay, now we're going to travel to a place that's supposed to be a refuge from all this conflict, the Olympic Games. But at the opening ceremony for the 2026 Winter Games in Milan, an event that's meant to be all about unity, well, it turned into a stage for some very loud political protest. You can almost hear the surprise in the TV announcer's voice with this quote. As the U.S. delegation marched into the stadium, led by Vice President J.D. Vance, the cameras cut to him on the big screen, and the crowd's reaction was, well, it was loud and clear. So what exactly went down? Well, first, the U.S. delegation with VP Vance walks in and is hit with a wave of booing. Now, this was all about the confirmed involvement of U.S. ICE agents in Olympic security. A lot of local leaders saw that as a huge overreach, and it sparked opposition from Italian lawmakers and even Milan's mayor. Then, a little later, the Israeli delegation also entered to what was described as a smattering of boos. You know, it's just this powerful reminder that there are very few places left, if any, that are truly safe from global politics. The whole Olympic ideal of putting differences aside for sport ran headfirst into real-world fights over immigration and international conflict right there on the world's biggest stage. And for our final story of the day, we land in Washington, D.C., where a social media post from former President Trump's official account just ignited a firestorm of criticism, and not just from his opponents. This whole thing unfolded so fast. It starts late Thursday night when a video gets shared on Trump's Truth Social account. It included a racist, apparently AI-generated clip showing the former president and First Lady Obama as apes. The first response from the White House Friday morning was to defend it. But after fierce criticism, and that includes from Republicans, the post was taken down. By Friday night, Trump himself had condemned the clip, but he wouldn't apologize and instead blamed an aide. What makes this so significant is that the condemnation was swift and it was bipartisan. It forced a rare reversal from a White House that almost never backs down. And it kicked off a really serious debate about the standards we expect for presidential communication and the real danger of normalizing racist images that have such a long and ugly history. And so, here we are, back where we started. Japan's new direction, the impossible mix of war and peace in Ukraine, civilians targeted in Sudan, politics at the Olympics, and a racism scandal out of the White House. Are these just 5 random stories? Or do they, when you put them all together, paint a pretty accurate picture of our world right now? A world of deep conflict, shifting power, and undeniable division. Something to think about. Thanks for watching.